Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. You are safe here. You are warm. The sounds of the night wrap around you like a blanket. Outside, the world is quiet. The streets are empty. The houses are dark. But in the spaces between, in the shadows where the street lights don't reach, that is where the stories live. Tonight's story takes us to a small town called Harlan, nestled in a valley between two hills, where the most important structure is not the church or the school or the water tower. It is the fence. The fence runs along the eastern edge of town. It begins at the old railroad bridge where the creek passes under the tracks, and it runs north for 11 miles until it disappears into the foothills, where the land rises and the trees grow too thick to see. No one in Harlan can say who built it. No one can say when. It is woven wire on wooden posts, the kind you might find around a pasture or a farm. But this fence does not enclose anything. It simply runs, a line drawn across the land. On one side, the town. On the other, scrubland, flat and featureless and empty. The kind of land that looks like it has been waiting for something for a very long time. Mayor Dorothy Callahan was 63 and had lived in Harlan her entire life. She had asked her parents about the fence as a child. They did not know. She asked her grandparents. They did not know either. Her grandmother had told her once that the fence had always been there, that she remembered it being old when she was young, that her own mother had said the same thing. The fence was old, older than anyone could remember. It was a part of Harlan, the way the hills were a part of Harlan. It was simply there. The fence was not remarkable by day. It was rusted and weathered, leaning slightly in places, held together by wire and stubbornness. People walked along it without seeing it. Children played near it. Dogs urinated on its posts. It was a fence. It did its job, whatever that job was. But at night the fence changed, not visibly. You could not look at it and say it was different, but you could feel it. If you walked along the fence after dark, you felt something, a tension, a vibration in the wire, as if the fence were under pressure, as if something on the other side was leaning against it. Harold Fisk was the first to notice. He was 71, a retired mechanic, and he walked his dog every evening along the road that ran parallel to the fence. He had been walking that road for 30 years. The fence had always been the same, a presence in his peripheral vision, a companion. Then one evening in November, he stopped. His dog had stopped too, pulling against the leash, whining, trying to go back the way they had come. Harold looked at the fence. The posts were bent. Not all of them. A section of about 20 feet. The posts leaned inward, toward the town, toward him. The wire between them was stretched taut, pulled tight as guitar strings, and as if something on the other side was pressing against it. Pushing. Harold touched the wire. It was hot. Not warm from the sun, hot, vibrating. He pulled his hand back and looked at the scrubland beyond. There was nothing there. Empty ground, dry brush, the darkness. But the fence was bent. The wire was tight. Something had been there. Something had pushed. Harold told Dorothy. Dorothy told the sheriff. The sheriff drove out and looked at the fence and found nothing. By morning, the posts had straightened. The wire had loosened. The fence was a fence again. The sheriff told Harold he had probably seen it wrong. The wind, frost heave, old wood bending, Harold did not argue. He knew what he had seen, but he also knew that no one would believe him. It happened again and again, always at night, always in the same pattern. A section of fence, 20 or 30 feet, bending inward, wire stretched, posts groaning, and always, the next morning, back to normal, as if nothing had happened, as if the fence were resetting itself, preparing for the next night, the next push. Dorothy began keeping a log. She drove the fence line every morning, checking each post, noting any damage. She found it. Every few days, a new section, bent, stressed, the wire thinner in places, as if something had been pulling at it. She photographed everything. She had the evidence. She just did not know what it meant. It was in December that the sounds began. People living along the fence started hearing things at night. Not loud sounds, subtle ones. A scratching, like claws, on wire. A low vibration that came through the ground rather than the air. And voices, not words exactly, more like the shape of words, the cadence of speech without language, a murmur, a conversation happening just beyond the fence, in the scrubland, in the dark. Children heard it first. Children always hear it first. They told their parents. Their parents told them to go back to sleep. Then the parents heard it too. A rhythmic sound, like something walking along the fence. Back and forth, back and forth. The sound of wire under pressure. The sound of posts bending and straining. The sound of something patient, something deliberate, something that was not in a hurry, because it had all the time in the world. Dorothy called a town meeting. The community hall was full. People were afraid, though they did not like to say it. Dorothy showed her photographs, the bent posts, the stretched wire, the pattern of damage that appeared and disappeared. She did not say the word monster. She did not say the word alien. She said they did not know what was on the other side of the fence. She said they did not know who had built it or why. But she said it had been built for a reason. The fence was old, older than the town. Someone, at some point, had decided that whatever lived in the scrubland needed to be kept out, and now it was pushing against the fence, and the fence was old, and the wire was thin, and the posts were rotting. The meeting ended with no resolution. People went home. They locked their doors. They lay in bed and listened. The scratching, the voices, the pressure on the fence. Some people moved away, not many. Harlan was a small town, and people did not leave easily. They had roots there. They had history. They had family. They stayed. They watched the fence. They listened to the night. The worst night was in February. A windstorm came through the valley, not unusual for that time of year, but the wind carried something with it, a sound that was not wind, a sound that came from the scrubland, from beyond the fence. It was howl, but not an animal howl. Deeper, older, it rose and fell with the wind, and it carried words, actual words, in a language no one recognized. The entire town heard it. Every person in Harlan lying in their beds heard the words in the wind. They did not understand them, but they felt them. The words meant something. The words were a warning, or a promise, or a name. Dorothy stood at her window that night and watched the fence. In the flashes of lightning, she could see it. The wire stretched to breaking, the posts bent almost horizontal. Something pushing, something heavy, something that wanted in. The storm passed by dawn. The fence straightened. The wire loosened. But Dorothy saw something she had not seen before. A gap, a small one, in a section near the railroad bridge. One post had broken. The wire had parted. A gap of about 3 feet, just wide enough for something to pass through. Dorothy drove out and stood before the gap. Beyond it, the scrubland stretched into the gray morning, empty, still. She looked. Through the gap, she looked for a long time, and at the far edge of her vision, where the land meets the sky and the dark bleeds into light, she saw something, a shape, standing, watching, not moving, just waiting. Waiting for the gap to be a little wider, waiting for the fence to fail, waiting for the night. She picked up the broken post. She wired the gap shut. She used new wire, thick wire. She reinforced the posts on either side. She worked all morning. By noon, the fence was whole again. But Dorothy knew. The fence was old. The wire would stretch again. The posts would bend. The gap would return. And one night, it would not be mended. And the thing in the scrubland would cross. And Harlan would learn why. Someone, a long time ago, had decided that a fence was worth building, worth maintaining, worth the effort of holding back whatever waited on the other side. You are safe here. The fence is still standing. The wire is still tight. The posts are still straight. For tonight, close your eyes. Let the darkness hold you. Sleep well.